Hello, welcome back to my series on exploring Reason. Since last time, Reason 9.5 came out, but for our purposes, nothing has much changed. They added some VST support and so on. But in this episode, we're going to look at yet another instrument, the Redrum drum computer. So I have here a blank document, just deleted everything that comes in the file new, and we're going to drag that in. So here is the Redrum instrument, the Redrum drum computer, as they call it. So the interface is divided amongst, up the top half is 10 different instruments. If you click these little play buttons, you can hear each of the instruments, and so on. So each of these are different sounds. So I'm going to switch it to the hip-hop kit, which changes all these sounds to the hip-hop sounds that come in the hip-hop kit. So the real power of this Redrum drum computer is this sequencer down here, this step sequencer, where you can define some number of steps, a resolution per step, and you can say, okay, I'm going to select this one, which sounds like this, and I want it to play every 4 steps. So we're at 16th resolution, so each of these is a 16th note. So every 1/4 note, I want it to play. So there's our 4th beat. And of course you can just change it while it's playing. You can also set the dynamic. So let's say you wanted one of these to be hard, so you can see the color changed. You might not be able to hear the dynamic on this drum. Let's change it. Let's show off that in a bit. So you can also select between, of course, these 10 different instruments, and each of them can be step sequenced differently. So let's sequence this one to something like that. Something random. So let's say you're messing with this one, you can solo it. So now we're hearing just this sound by pressing the S. Let's see if we can hear the dynamic. You hear how those are louder? Those are softer. Yeah. So you can also hold down Shift while placing these, and that places hard notes. You hold down Shift. If you hold them all to place soft ones, which is kind of nice. So that's this control right here. Just lets you select like what you're clicking on without holding Alt or Shift. Alright, so the next thing is this flam thing, and that's kind of a double hit. So like, let's say you have, this, but you want it even faster, but you don't want to change the resolution. So you can edit flam and then hit these little yellow lights. So let's do one of them. So I'll do this one. I'll turn off these. Hold on. I will turn off these, and you'll hear it a bit better. So you'll hear 3 notes right here. If I turn it off, you'll hear 2 notes. So it's like a quick tap for like a drum roll. And I think this is the swing amount. If I remember correctly. We'll read about that flam knob a little bit. Anyway, to turn them on and off, you just hit those little light buttons, and that turns on the flam. If you enable this button, then clicking it adds a button with it lit up already. So you don't really need this button. It's just a way to add a note at the same time. Let's see. So you don't have to, of course you can change the resolution. So let's go back over here. Let's unsolo this one and solo this one and run it. So there's our bass hit every fourth because we're at resolution of 16. Now if we were to change it to resolution of 8, now each of these notes is 1/8. If we were to change it to half, each of these notes is 1/2. So every whole note, we're basically doing a drum hit. If you were to light them all up, then every half note you're doing a drum hit because our resolution is 1/2. So now we're doing a drum hit every fourth, drum hit every 18th or 8th, every 16th, every 32nd, 1/64th, and so on. It goes crazy. 16th is pretty good for most applications, obviously. 1/28th, just nuts. Very fast. All right. Let's see what else to talk about. Number of steps. So you don't have to have 16 steps in the sequencer. You can just do 8, for example. Let's run that. So it's just going to repeat these first 8. It's basically going to ignore whatever you do over here. It doesn't matter. It's still there. So if you increase it back to 16, it's still going to run that stuff, but it kind of ignores it. It just says stop when you get to 8, or whatever you set it to. You can go down to 1. So now it's just looking at this first one, which is obviously pretty dumb. Now it's just looking at the first 2. So if you want your pattern just to be 8, you can do that. And you can make your pattern up to, 64, I think it is, yeah. So how the hell do you edit all that crap? So that's what this is. So here I have, so let's turn it, let's make it more reasonable to 32. So I don't have to think about this stuff too hard. So now here's what I have over here, and then a totally blank one over here. So let's keep this one on just a simple fourth. And then over here, we're going to do eighths. So now when it gets, this is basically the second half of the pattern, because we're at 32 steps. This is the first 16. This is the second 16. And if you have up to 64, third 16, and fourth 16. So you can make pretty long patterns if you want to. It's up to you. When I do it, since I'm a noob, I usually leave it on 1/16 and 16 steps. And you can make stuff that sounds pretty good just by that. And of course you can mute. That's the M button. So you can mute all this stuff. Master level right here to turn it down or up, which is basically the same as this. Let's see what else is interesting. So there's this pattern selection button here. So you don't just have one pattern to work with, you have a bank of patterns. You have 8 patterns in bank A, 8 patterns in bank B, C, and D. So basically 32 patterns to work with. So you can switch to pattern 2, and then nothing's happening because it's blank. So let's go select this guy, and then put back just our drum, our kick drum. So if I go back to pattern 1, so when it loops, it's going to switch pattern on you. See that? So I'm going to switch it, and then as soon as it starts, so when it gets to here, I'm going to switch it back. So at the end of the pattern, it will switch. Now, of course, what you can do is you can hit record, and then you can say, okay, well, I want the song to be like, you know, that pattern for a while, and then this pattern. And then you can stop recording, stop this stuff, go back to the front of your song and your sequencer, and here's your pattern bar, because I basically recorded the pattern switches. So if I hit play, it's going to do A1 for a while, and then it's going to switch to pattern A2. You can't really easily see that, but that does say A2, and there it goes. And of course, you can click on these little A's, and then you can switch it manually to whatever you want. So if you're like, oh, this really should be pattern 3, there you go. You know, and you can shorten it or whatever you want to do. Standard sequence editing. Let's get rid of that. Don't care. You can enable the pattern button. Oh, and then of course, there's different banks. So you have bank, you know, B, A through D. That's just so they don't have to have 32 of these buttons. So B1, C1, D1, and so on. So A1 is where I was defining the earlier pattern. Oops, don't click that. Why is it not playing? Should play. Oh, I had to click the pattern button. So this is disable a pattern if you don't want to enable a pattern, because you can also, this pattern button is like, well, just disable this component because I'm going to route it this way in the back. Pattern selection. I'll have to read about what that does. I think it just disables. It's another way to disable this stuff here. So that's kind of the bottom UI. Over here is your patch selection, so you can browse for your different patches. You have a ton of pre-built patches and all these subfolders. I'm not going to go through them all, of course, but it basically just changes all 10 sounds to sound different. So you can kind of get a beat that you like and then mess around until you like the preset, the patch preset that you favor. The other cool thing about Redrum is if, let's say, you don't like this, these bells, they're just not doing it for you. Like, let's say you gotta run this stuff. So you hear those bells there. Select those bells. And you really want a cowbell sound, so let's open a patch browser. So I'm just double clicking. And you're like, hey, that sounds good. And you're done. And you just close that. So it's a really nice way to kind of just drop in sounds. Alright, so let's see, we looked at these buttons, we looked at that button. This just cycles between. It's kind of like just a quick browse without opening up the browser. So nothing special there. This is the sample button. I'll come back to that later. This basically lets you sample your own sounds. This is drum send. You can have a send channel to 1 or send channel to 2. Panning. So you can hear that on the left, you can hear that on the right. Audio level, make it really loud. Velocity. So you can like make it negative to make the velocity higher, positive to make the velocity lower. Change the length of the hit. So if I solo this guy, you can hear this is like a decay. Whereas this guy's a cutoff, which might work better for some sounds. Alter the pitch. Tone. Oh, it doesn't work well on a bass. Bass. That's the pitch that we saw before. It's a bend option. So some of these are slightly different. So if you notice, these options are the same all the way across, all 5 of these, and over here. But these two in the center are slightly different. This has a pitch and a bend, so let's listen to that. I don't know why the UI designers decided to make these two special, 6 and 7. Maybe it says in the manual somewhere. So you can hear that pitch going on, pitch bend going on. And then these two. And then these two have, at the bottom, they have a tone and the velocity. And so does this one. These 3 and these 2 all have a start and a velocity, whereas these have a rate and a velocity. So you have 3 different options at the very bottom right down here. Let's listen to this one. I guess these controls were better suited for drum sounds, kick sounds, I mean. Which is why they probably decided to put these on these controls. So some of these banks are kind of custom tuned for certain sounds according to their control scheme. They're not all the same control scheme. Put this one every 8th note. So this is just a sample start, looks like. Velocity sample start. Weird. pretty much all the UI. There's also this channel 8.9 exclusive, which I'm not sure what it is. I'll have to go into the manual to look at that. So let's flip over to the manual and have a read. So here's our Redrum drum computer. At first glance, Redrum looks styled after pattern-based drum machines like the legendary Roland 808 and 909 units. Indeed, it does have a row of 16 step buttons that are used for programming step patterns, just like the classics. However, there are slight differences. The Redrum features 10 drum channels that can be each loaded with an audio file, allowing for completely open-ended sound possibilities. Don't like the snare? Just change it. Complete Redrum kits can be saved as Redrum patches, allowing you to mix and match drum sounds and make up custom kits with ease. In addition, Redrum also has sampling capability. This means you can sample your own sound straight into each of the 10 drum channels with a click of a button. Nice. Let's see, this is the sampling stuff. Using patches, pattern basics. Let's see, we didn't talk about shuffle. Shuffle is a rhythmic feel, gives you more or less pronounced swing feel, works by delaying all 16th notes that fall in between the 8th notes. And that, I think, is controlled by this kind of global regroove mixer. So if you want them to swing, you can kind of do the shuffle button. Flam. A flam is when you double strike a drum to create a rhythmic or dynamic feel. We'll add a second hit to the drum sound. The flam knob determines the delay between the two hits. If you deactivate the pattern button, pattern playback muted, starting at the next downbeat. For example, this can be used to bring, so if you don't want it to play a pattern at all, you just click this button. That's what that's for. You can also mute Redrum devices in sequence using the mute button for the track. This will mute the Redrum output instantly, and the mute indicator. That's not a button, is it? The enable pattern switch selection. If this is off, Redrum will function as a sound module. So basically this is turning off the entire sequencer. And you can control, the other thing you can do is you can right click this pattern. And there's a lot of options. Either right click or you can go to edit. And there's a lot of options in here, so you can copy a pattern and paste it into, so you don't have to like retype, re-click all the different patterns. You can also shift the entire pattern, all the instruments, the entire pattern, left to right. You can randomize the entire pattern, just giving you, so like let's say we go to pattern 3, which is blank, right? And then we right click and we just say randomize pattern. So that will give us random crap pretty much everywhere. Let's turn off solo. So there's our random crap, which is usually pretty dumb. But let's say you clear the pattern, so now there's nothing in any of the tracks. And then you say, okay, well, I just want a random drum for this, whatever I've selected. And then you can do it again if you don't like that. Let's see. So usually randomize is probably not what you're going to do. You can also alter the drum, which takes the number of beats that you currently have and shuffles them. So it's a bit less random than random. That's alter. So alter, shuffling the current notes and redistributing them at random. So it's a little less chaotic than randomize. So alter on our empty pattern will not do anything. And alter drum is the same, but only affects the current drum sound. And then you can do pattern automation. Oh, the other thing you can do, let's go back here, and then you can copy it to a track, which is another cool feature. So copy pattern to track. So now if we go to our sequencer, so now our sequencer has all of these notes. Let's actually turn off this. And then when we play, it's all just coming from these notes. So then I can go in here, select these notes and delete them. Or do whatever. I could shift them all down. I think I can move them down, can't I? Maybe not. Make that one longer. Do whatever I want to do. Delete a few. Draw them in. And so on. You'll want to disable the, you want to control it one way or the other. You don't want to control it both ways, otherwise you get double hits, which obviously is goofy. Delete that note lane and then go back to this. There we go. Let's see what else is interesting. There's the send knobs. So the send stuff is on the back. So you can send out to 1 or 2 and then do whatever you're going to do in there, like using an echo device or chorus or whatever you like to do. And these knobs control how much to send to each of those sends. There's decay and fade out. You saw this knob earlier. Pitch bend. Tone knob. Adjust the brightnesses of the drum. Sample start. And it's basically just where you start the sample. Let's read about this button here. If this button is activated, the sounds loaded to drum 8 and 9 will be exclusive. In other words, if sound played in channel 8 is silenced for a moment, this will be silenced the moment a sound is triggered in channel 9 and vice versa. Hi-hat and a close hat, just like a real one does. Kind of interesting. So let's check out that. So 8 and 9. It's going to be hard to hear that. Okay. So let's go to pattern 3. Is there stuff in here? So we go to pattern 4. So even though pattern 8 is supposed to play, pattern 9 is taking priority because of this button. So if I don't choose that, kind of weird. Kind of weird that they just choose it for 8 and 9. It's like a single button. High quality interpolation. calculated using a more advanced interpolation algorithm. Better results and better audio quality. Uses more computer power. If you don't need it, it's a good idea to turn it off. Whatever. Let's see what else is interesting. Mutant solo, effect sends, pans, all this stuff. Connections. Yeah, let's look at the back. So we have left and right audio output for each of the drum sound channels and allows you to route it to a mixer or effects. Gate out and gate in. So gate out sends a gate signal when the drum is played. This lets you use as a trig sequencer, controlling other devices. Length of the gate depends on the decay gate setting. In decay mode, a short trig pulse is sent out. In gate mode, it will have the same length as the drum note. Gate in allows you to trigger the sound from another CV or gate device. All settings apply just as when you've played the drum sound conventionally. And the last one is pitch CV in. It can let you control the pitch of the drum sound from another CV device. And then you have your stereo out and your sends. That's pretty much it. I think we've covered everything on this Redrum guy. We never looked at this top bar. This top bar is common to all instruments. So if you click on this, this is a spectrum equalizer. So let's play like number 1. So you can do a low pass filter and adjust that so you only hear the lows, or high pass filter so you only hear the highs. Or you can turn them both on so you only hear the middle. Or you can turn on an EQ and then you can play with it however you like. And you can turn on these other goofy modes that, so let's say you want this guy to be more kind of spiky. Kind of adjusting the shapes of these points. You can turn on and off analyzer. It's just the background. Then you have your mix, which just automatically jumps you to your mixer, which you can close, and your sequence, which jumps you to your sequencer, and then your overall level. A pan knob left and right, mute the device, solo device, pretty standard stuff. I think that's pretty much everything. Save the patch if you made a bunch of changes. All right, I think that'll do us for this instrument. Thanks for watching. See you next time.